So hello, you four from 9 Days. It's so good to see you, and congratulations on your various awards from Denver Film Festival 43. It's so great to have you, even if it's in this virtual form. It's really beautiful to be able to talk to you about a rather extraordinary film. And the rather is, of course, slightly ironic. It's a really impressive first film. Edson, really special. And the performances are amazing. So I think I'm going to ask one of those sort of general questions that all of you, I'd love to hear from Zazie and Winston and Jason. What attracted you to this screenplay? I can think of all kinds of things, but my father told me never to, what assumes spells. So I try to be careful. Jason, maybe you first, because you are so instrumental in having the film exist.
Yeah, so I had, first of all, Lisa, thank you for moderating this with us today.
I'm glad to be here, man. I love you.
I was given the script back, I think it was like January 2018, and I actually got it while it was at Sundance, I think 2 days before the festival was over. And so I read it the night that I got back from Utah, and there was just, I hadn't read anything like it before. And there was so much heart in the movie, and it was so emotional. And I felt like so much empathy for Will's character. I also had looked at the materials that had been sent along with the script, the virtual lookbook and this mood reel and this sequence that Edson had cut together from that was basically an example of the bicycle scene. And so between just the way that, he saw the world being shown through the lives of the point of view of these people on these TVs, and then this just brilliant written script where, I was so emotional at the end of it. I knew that it was something that I wanted to be involved in it. I hadn't seen anything like it before. And it also reminded me a lot of, movies of like Spike Jonze and, the writings of like Charlie Kaufman and Michel Gondry. There was a movie at Sundance that I had seen, which is still one of the best premieres of a movie that I had seen, which was this film called The Science of Sleep, which was Michel Gondry. I vividly remember that movie because it was just so unique and so different. And that's how I felt about Edson's 9 Days. And so, the next day I called up his manager, and I obviously knew that he had gone through the Sundance labs as well, and was like, I would love to meet with Edson. This is the most original thing that I've ever read. And you could just tell that he had so much heart as a filmmaker. And that's what I respond to in movies, is empathy.
Yeah, that's really well said. And you put him in such good company too, which I think is interesting because Spike Jonze and Charlie Kaufman and Michel Gondry, they also have a kind of cerebral thing that goes on. And I actually find this formally warmer, and I like those filmmakers a lot. This is like hits the sweet spot, I think, in terms of being so interestingly, mutedly brainy, and also super, super warm and emotional and profound in terms of sort of spiritual. That has a spiritual resonance, I think. I'm saying texture. Yeah, I'm saying resonance, but I mean texture, I think. So before I just, well, no, I mean, what do you think of that?
Well, I was just going to say there's a relatability to this. I mean, I related to, Will's character. So there's a relatability that I do think, like with those other movies, I think that for some people there is a relatability. I definitely connected to some of those filmmakers' films, but not in the way that I specifically connected to Edson's 9 Days.
Right.
But I agree with what you're saying.
But their movies are better.
I don't know.
They're better for makers.
I'm on the 9 Days train.
I'm just joking, but I feel like I idolize them. So every time you compare it to them, I just feel like they're just masters. They're
masters. Yeah,
they're masters. I can't even say anything about them. They're just masters. But I appreciate you comparing. I feel like they're giving your own. Yeah.
Zazie, what were you going to say?
And you're not Gondry, you're not Kaufman. Edson and you're bringing something new to the table.
Yeah.
That is
100%.
just as worthwhile and important.
So what about you two? What about you, Zazie, in terms of what you saw in this? What did you see in Emma, or what did you see in the screenplay that's like, I got to do this?
I read the script and just, I mean, I'm always really into world building and into something that, you know, is a step left from what our reality is. And that element of it just seemed so, I just really resonated with the place that Edson had put this in terms of kind of this pre-life, post-life merging of sorts, and the exploration of that. I, you know, also in terms of mental health, I feel really, really connected to stories around that. And I find it to be naturally what I really, really am drawn to. Just, you know, in terms of my own journey and my own desire to seek deeper appreciation and meaning and joy and hope in life. And so just all of those elements really, really drew me to the script. And then ultimately the kind of thing that drove it home was meeting Edson and just him as a person and his own personal connection, which I'm sure he'll go into later on. You really just, you know, this script is very, very real in terms of what it deals with and how it deals with it, and it comes from a real place. So yeah, that's what really drew me in.
That's very cool. Winston, Will is such an interesting character and so different, as you've heard, from the, you know, from something that was like iconic for many of us. And your Black Panther performance is like, oh, that dude can really, really act. I just thought he could act. Now I know he can really, really act. It was like, and it's really beautiful. But how did you come to this, and what was the attraction to you for Will? I don't think I had that preposition right, but you know what I mean.
I got you. I hear you. It really, I felt like the piece came looking for me, and I all I had to do was answer and respond. I always look for pieces that work kind of against what the industry and culture around me wants to put me in as type, which is like conservatively and conservatively masculine and very masculine in type and as a big Black male. And when I read the script, I was like, I really thought that the representation of Will could be any person, even a woman. Like, it didn't scream masculinity, it didn't scream any real gender. And I thought that all the things that people used to define me would add extra narrative to this piece that would add texture and color and richness to something that was already so infused with, you know, wealth of content. And I love that. I also responded to the fact that the script felt like it respected me, right? It respected my intellect. It wasn't didactic in any way. It wasn't spoon feeding me any particular moralistic view or like purview on life, on the world, on religion. And I didn't realize that I needed that so much at the time, you know, because our world's governed so much by like monitored metrics, right? So like everything is almost designed for you. It's designed for your taste, and it's already coming to you very much explained and very much part and parceled for you. So you have no other choice but to almost be addicted to it the second you consume it. And when I read the script, I was like, I have so many questions, and my brain is like functioning as a creative, and this is so beautiful. And I think I sat there for like 40 minutes to an hour after, and I finished reading it at like maybe like 2 or 3 in the morning. And it just felt like I did the thing that I enjoy doing as a viewer as well. Like, I climbed the mountain. The character started one place, and by the end of the script, I was someplace completely different. And I was like, wow, that is a journey. that is one hell of a big journey. That is beautiful. And I come from a very like magical realism background coming from the Caribbean.
Right,
so
right.
yeah. So like that's a big part of my background. And like anything that involves spirituality, you know, and the spirit realm, and like really, you know, a holistic view of the human condition really attracts me. And once I read that, it was all of this in one sitting. So I'm explaining little bits by little bit of like what actually happened in my brain that night at like 2, 3 in the morning. I'm like, wow, who is this guy, you know? And then I sat down with Edson shortly after, maybe 2 weeks after. So I had some time to really digest what I had taken in. And Edson and I spoke for maybe 3 hours, just about, we started with the movie and then spoke for the other 2.5 hours on like anime, on life, being immigrants to, you know, this culture. And just the narratives around all those things. And I said, this is my director, if you'll have me. I knew at that moment that I trust this person to tell this really large, big, beautiful story using me as the medium. And I didn't know he would choose me because he had said he was looking for someone to represent the uncle that Will is based off of.
Right.
And I was like, it makes sense. This is his story. It's his background. It is infused with, and it's not defined by, but his culture helps to create what this narrative is. So it makes a lot of sense that he wants someone who looks like him to play this role of a family member who was experiencing this thing. And then I found out shortly after that he wanted to work with me, and that was an even bigger honor, that he saw like a universality in my medium and in my person to tell this story. So I really felt like, you know, 9 Days chose me, and I just said yes, you know.
That's great. You too, Zazie. I mean, all three of you have like basically set up all the rest of the questions. Thank you so much. I don't have to do anything. But Edson, so tell me, so would you share a little bit about what that personal journey is to this particular screenplay? I know a little bit, and you know, and Winston just mentioned your uncle. So could you talk about the sort of personal aspects and how you create that alchemy to this particular screenplay?
Yeah, I feel like there's so much about writing 9 Days coming from, I think, struggle and joy. I think both of them, you know, in the sense of, and when you watch the movie, I feel like you see that. I think the struggle, the pain, but also like the joy and the celebration of life, you know. And then I feel the time I was living was a time that I could think about these themes. And the protagonist actually was based on a uncle of mine, as they mentioned, and they mentioned it was he, and he was such a sensitive and artistic and very, you know, talented person. And when he was I think he was 50, and he was like around 12, and he committed suicide. And at that time was such a, you know, it's very impactful in a way, like how it affects the family and how you see a person who commits suicide, the person becomes the suicide rather than being like represented by everything else that he did. And I think at the time that I was living, at that time, I felt like, I saw, as most of the people would used to see him, like, oh no, this person was a failure. This person, you know, like they wasn't prepared to live in this tough world. And I feel like later, as I was going through more struggles and possibly going through things that he went through, I was just like able to empathize more with him and understand him better, you know. And I think then I start building this connection with him, in the sense that I understand his pain, and also had this fear of not becoming like him, you know, in a way in a way it almost like, I can't be like him because he was the failure, you know. And it's such a terrible thing to think of. And but and at the same time you have your reasons. And then I feel like as I was writing 9 Days, it was kind of this, how can I connect to that man, you know, in a way that it didn't connect. And I feel like the script came from that.
One of the things I thought, and I'm gonna, you know, ask another sort of general question that I'd love you all to work off of, in part because we're going to run out of time. I know that you didn't have loads of time to spend with us, but one of the things, it was like maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes into the film, maybe a little deeper, I had this kind of epiphany that, wow, this was an extraordinary experience. Probably not just to read, but actually to perform in. And I think both of you, Zazie and Winston, have both already sort of talked about the kind of spiritual dimension of the work. But I was like going, wow, I think that this would have probably been a very deep, deep experience for cast members to have bought into, because it is so rich. It really just reverberates in a very interesting way off the screen. And and I don't always feel that. I mean, you watch films and you don't necessarily go, I wonder how this transformed the people that were doing the performances, doing the work, taking these characters on. And I know there's acting, but I also think that there's was something else going on. I wonder if I'm just projecting, or was that sort of the experience that you all had?
I mean, it was the experience of it all really put you in sometimes the space of the character, one from your own work that you're doing to come into the space with, and then how we were shooting. So we were shooting this all in order, so I really got to feel the same way Will felt. And then our daily schedules would start at, let's just say we started at 7 on day 1. We would then start 2 hours later on day 2 until at the end of the week, at the end of the work week, we're ending at 9 in the morning. So like I always lost track of time, right? I always lost track of time, and it always felt like I was in Will's world, and my body never had any time to kind of get accustomed to sleep patterns, which felt like Will. And it felt like I was here, I was doing everything. And because we were working in this kind of independent film model, everyone had this real beautiful sense of responsibility for making everything kind of happen. So you just felt like you were in a very dedicated space to work. And we all knew we had a limited amount of time. We had a lot of language to get through every single day. We got through all this language in like 23 days. And that's Will's world. It's a world of work. It's a world of using work as a means of numbing the pain, numbing the fatigue, numbing the like hardship of what life and being in a present reality is. And we were doing that. We were just like, every single day I wondered how we would finish the day. And then we would finish the day somehow. Like we would get everything we needed. We would finish the day and everyone was happy. And then we're like, how do we get through another 10 pages of language tomorrow? And it would happen, and that was Will's world. So I changed as a person. I kept saying, I didn't know I could do something like this until I did it.
Interesting. That's wild. Zazie, what about you?
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of, I think the environment provided a lot of stimulate. Yes, I think was sort of a character in the film, and particularly for a character like mine who doesn't have a backstory. And, that's often how many actors, including myself, I like to prepare with that. I often make my own if there isn't one provided in a story, but this character is essentially marked by not having that. And so exploring that space, I think something I've never done before. And it was really interesting to truly be a being of this moment, because this moment is the only information that they have. And, and then beyond that, the set of this kind of enclosed space in the home, and then opening up into the desert, I found that very moving. I was shocked actually at how much leaving the home and then coming into this vast expanse really affected me. And I think it affected you too, Winston. And, that scene for me, frankly, goes down, and like our final scene goes down. I think it's one of my favorite things I've ever shot, and was just so wholly moving. And I think was kind of this wonderful joining of Emma and myself, and I felt that very deeply. I don't even really remember what the question was.
Kind of like admittance of like the fact that we're all one in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because I felt so connected to you that day. I felt so connected to you. It's just like I couldn't really tell where I stopped and you began in that place.
Yeah.
And I remember we were just like, let's just do it again. I'm tired because I've been sprinting towards you. Let's just do it again. And you're like flapping your wings and all this stuff throughout the thing. So you're getting tired too. And I mean, it really, like, shooting it in sequence really helped us, because we also, by that time doing that, we had trusted each other a lot by that time too.
Right.
We'd worked through everything else. Yeah.
I also remember
sometimes we were working on scenes. We were working on scenes and then would like run to another room to like start prepping the next scene, and then run back to like finish shooting the last scene that we were doing before. Like, we just knew we were in this space, so we developed a lot of trust for each other.
I also remember a lot of, because Will is such a sort of guarded kind of holding it, keeping his self close to his chest. And so I feel like you would come onto set in that energy a lot. And then I remember the day we had our scene in the desert, you were, oh shoot, I don't know how to turn off the notifications on my computer. And I remember I asked how you were doing, and you were just like laughing, saying, "I'm just ready to give." And I was like, ah! And it was so cool to have, I think this idea of filling your well, filling with joy. And, I often think of like, if I'm doing like a sad scene or an emotional scene, I have to like get into my sad music, but so much of that can come from love and joy too, and emotionality. And tears can come from love and joy and connection. I love to cry when I'm happy. And so that was such a beautiful, like, I feel like we were both so open that day, and in an openness of joy. And so that was such a wonderful, it was just wonderful.
That's great. Edson, I just want to end, I think, with you, because, you're the dude that like brought everybody together. What did you expect from working with actors, and what did you learn from working with this cast, this group of people?
I think that expect is more of their interpretation of how what means for them to be in the moment and be true to that character. I think it's for me when I'm watching, the character, I imagine someone in my mind, but I think what in the end what matters is just like if that person is being honest, and you can see like, oh, this is a person, and then I feel like you care about. So I feel like I expect this honesty to the character, to themselves. It can just like be almost like a living being, when you're watching camera. I think this is, and that's and I had the pleasure and the honor to just like as I was watching their performance, just every single take and every single second and moment, it was just like everything was so genuine and so honest and so true, and I feel like I couldn't ask for a better like cast than the one that I had for this specific film. So and answer the other question was did I answer both the questions?
You can answer them both together. That's all right. I like sort of bifurcated, but there's no reason necessarily that they weren't. They worked well as one. So I guess I should let you all go. I don't want to, but I think that's okay to leave people wanting more, from what I hear. So thank you so much for a really unusual, Jason, you're absolutely right, a really unique film that is both warm and so thought-provoking and sort of soul-stirring, I think. And thanks for the amazing performances, you two, and extended to the cast as well. So good luck with everything, and I hope to see you in Denver sometime soon. Take care. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great talking to you. Bye, guys.
Talking to you.